Morning, everybody. I'm heading to the airport, but I just wanted to have just a couple. I had time to have a couple more stops along the way. I've got my Sage here this morning, and I'm in another Bland office park. You can see this is the building. It's the Sorensen Communication Center, a business center, corporate offices, and this is really important because the Sorensen family, there's two, a father and a son. I mean, I'm sure there's more. Well, actually, I mean, there's more than that. But there's two Jim Sorensens. There was James Lavoie Sorensen and James Lee Sorensen. And James Lavoie Sorensen has passed. That was the father, and he was sort of a self-made businessman, and he was the father of a lot of companies. Here in Utah. He came from Idaho, and then he settled here in the Salt Lake region. And he, I think, had 60 different companies that were under the larger Sorensen family name. And he had a lot of medical patents. And it's interesting because it turns out one of these patents he had was on the disposable surgical mask. Right? So in this moment of the whole mask situation, I did not know that till I just revisited it in the car that James Lavoie Sorensen, that he has a patent on disposable surgical masks. So that's very interesting. But he was very much into biotech and genomics. And so now there's a Sorensen Genomics Institute that essentially is holding human DNA databases tied to, various medical uses. And then his son, James Lee Sorensen, the son, so James Lavoie Sorensen, when he died, he was the richest. He had $4.5 billion, and he was the richest man in Utah. And ostensibly, according to Wikipedia, it said he gave all of his fortune to charity. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but so clearly there was a huge infusion of philanthropic money tied to business, and including medical and biotech efforts going in at that time. So his son, James Lee Sorensen, he was a pioneer in compression video software, I guess. So compression files for video streaming. He also created a communications company that did video phones early on, I guess in the 90s, video phones and closed captioning for the deaf, which is kind of interesting when you, the more I think about the sort of the human computer interfaces, these, supporting technological systems for people who, may have health conditions or other things that lead them to work in the world differently, that these systems are sort of dual use, right? And so that was some of his money was in the video compression, in the deaf communications, and in later on he founded a company called DataChem, which was environmental testing, and they were also into real estate. And in 2009, after the last housing crash, James Lee Sorensen purchased a portfolio of over $700 million worth of distressed commercial real estate assets from the FDIC. So currently now, Jim Sorensen, the son, is very much involved in impact investing. He endowed the Impact Center at the David Eccles Business School, which is at the University of Utah. He established the first student-run impact fund, venture capital fund, sort of social impact venture capital fund at the university, and is very much integrated with sort of bootstrap impact investing, sort of data-driven philanthropy. And when I was at the launch of the Social Impact Partnerships Pay for Results Act, he was actually one of the opening keynote speakers at that event. So, he was in from Utah for that event down in the Dirksen Senate building. And as part of the University of Utah David Eccles Impact Center, they would have these summits the last several years. And I have the documents from 2018 where he and Ronald Cohen, who was the father of social impact bonds, came together, and they gave the opening remarks for this event. So he's clearly, connected with the larger global social impact space. So I am just, I'll flip it around here. I know this is just really boring. I'm standing here on the city sidewalk because I'm not sure exactly what the deal is with this corporate space of going up closer. But this is the headquarters well, the headquarters of Waterford's UpStart is located in that building. There may be some other businesses in there. I think I saw something called Pill Pack, which I don't know, maybe prescription delivery pharmaceuticals, or so. I need to look up what Pill Pack is. But so Waterford UpStart is online preschool. And it's an online sort of kindergarten preparation program, but it's Chromebook based, it's digital education based. And, you know, I find it really incredibly predatory. And on their website, you know, one of the features they talk about a little girl, Charisse, who lives on the Navajo lands in southern Utah, and they're sort of saying like, oh, look, here's Charisse sitting on the floor of her living room doing her Chromebook education. You know, maybe she's 3 or 4 years old, maybe 4. She looks a little bit older, but you know, here she is, like, she doesn't have running water and she doesn't have electricity in her house, but she has this Chromebook for preschool, and isn't this wonderful? And you know, at the time I first encountered this a couple years ago, I just couldn't imagine what were people thinking. Like, I mean, online education is pretty terrible as it is, but why online education for preschoolers? I mean, of all things, those are the children who should most be connected to the physical world and playing and engaging and using their senses and all of these things. And, you know, it turns out that that program is being used in Philadelphia. And it's being used in Philadelphia in partnership with our library system. So again, our library system should be about children reading books and coming and sitting, you know, in story hour together with the librarians or friends. But our library system is pushing Waterford UpStart on pre-K as quote unquote literacy preparation for kindergarten. And they were actually using it on refugee families. So again, they're targeting these vulnerable populations for these data mining enterprises. And, you know, I would say, you know, the thing about the Navajo reservation in Utah is that, you know, they've been harmed exceedingly because of like uranium mining, right? The whole population has been harmed not only from the mining, but from the cancerous fallout from that, from the dust, from the uranium mining. And, you know, we've long talked about indigenous areas as these zones of sacrifice, sacrificial zones. It doesn't matter. You know, we've pushed indigenous people onto, you know, the worst of the worst land. And then when we find that there are resources that are wanted, then we extract them, and, you know, to hell with the people who are in that, you know, we don't care about them. They can just be sacrificed. And I feel like, you know, if you're picturing Charisse sitting in her living room with no running water and no electricity with a Chromebook, which I'm assuming gets maybe charged at a community center or somewhere off-site, I mean, it's really horrific. And it's not surprising because, again, it's this legacy of dispossession. But now, you know, increasingly, you know, look who's going to get online pre-K, right? Like, it's going to be lots more people. And the reason that the pre-K has to be online is that they want the data. They want the data for the social impact bonds that the Sorensens are pushing to run their capital. You know, and it really hurts my heart because one of the people who hosted me while I was here, who's a lovely, lovely person, and we're trying to figure out, like, how do we save education? How do we save a humane version of education for the future, because it's being erased, and even the incoming teachers aren't, you know, they grew up under standardized education. They don't know how to teach, and who's going to teach the teachers, and how do we keep this education alive? And she's actually, she was Montessori trained, but went on to train in Waldorf education. And so it's actually like her home is this beautiful, small scale, they serve, like, you know, kindergarten and early elementary, this Waldorf model. And what those children, they have a chalkboard and they have pastels and they have, you know, art activities. I think this week they're making Valentine boxes with pom-poms and glitter, and, you know, they have a nature corner with crystals and, you know, felt and tactile things and flashcards, and you know, it's small and it's intimate, it's connected to people and each other, and you know, it's beautiful. And that's what we should all be working for all of the children, not just children who can afford it, and then the poor kids get a Chromebook to be data mined as a commodity, just like a copper mine, or, you know, this mining infrastructure. It's horrific. So, you know, and it's masquerading as philanthropy. That's the problem. It's masquerading as something that's good when it's actually it's the polar opposite. And so it's very hard talking about these things because, again, I'm not saying that the need isn't there. The need is totally there, but it's not, the needs are there, but the answers that they're going to provide for us, because the power is so out of imbalance and we are so becoming dehumanized, that it's not happening. So, you know, I've got my little sage here. I'm going to put it down at the base of this tree again. You know, as the mothers of the world do not consent to online preschool. We do not consent to data mining our children. We do not consent to human capital commodities or people nairs and portfolios of people as human capital in a global surveillance state. And we insist on our right to have right relationships among each other, as people, as community, as family, as human beings, and our relationship to nature. So I'm not going to go too close there because I don't know. This guy is super powerful, but I'm gonna set my sage down here with the tree and say with a little tobacco and just, say a prayer of thanks for giving me the opportunity to come out and actually see these things that I've been writing about and understanding. And again, how do these things happen, right? It's where does evil live? Well, maybe evil just lives in a parking lot and it pretends that it's good. And I'm really calling on people of all sorts of faith and spirit to step out, right? Look up from your sandwich, step out and see this for what it is, and let us collectively refuse it, because I still do believe in my heart this isn't the future we want. So I might take just a quick walk down to the Sorensen Communications and I'll be back.